Ambassador, Dr. Koller, Ms. Milo, Ms. Hill, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to welcome you all to the Dead Sea, the lowest point on Earth in this very unique location, as my colleague has mentioned, to participate in this conference to introduce the principles of public administration, which has been developed through an OECD Sigma initiative in close cooperation with the European Commission. I would like to congratulate Sigma for their efforts over the recent years to define these guiding principles based on global good governance practices and presenting them in a simplified, applicable, and measurable manner. Since 2008, Sigma has been an indispensable policy advisor to our public institutions, which assisted in building our capacities in the areas of internal audit, external control, procurement, and legislative drafting. Public sector reform is an important yet complex task, not only to our countries, the European neighborhood countries, but also to other developed nations. Most of the OECD members are undertaking still concrete measures to reverse the trend of declining trust in national governments that started after the financial crisis in 2008. The reform process requires a clear vision, strong leadership, and commitment as well as consensus at all levels, in addition to consistent dialogue with all the relevant stakeholders to create the incentive to change and implement change. However, we often witness internal resistance regardless of the objective or means of reform. In most cases, the public sector reform process requires significant resources and sometimes unpopular decisions that its results take time to realize and sometimes is very hard to notice. The government of Jordan has extended numerous efforts to build its public institutions in line with international best practices that have over the past decades immensely contributed to serving citizens' interests and protecting and securing their rights. Jordanian civil servants have been famous within our region as being great contributors to building some of the public institutions in neighboring countries. Public institutions and the various policies and programs have played a central role in the evolution and development of modern Jordan. However, Jordan has been subject to many external shocks, including the recent influx of about 1.3 million Syrians as a result of the ongoing regional crisis, which have contributed to unprecedented population growth. This has resulted in exerting significant pressures on the public sector, which is becoming more complex and expensive to manage and sustain. Distinguished guests, public sector reform started in Jordan in the early 1980s. Since then, the government of Jordan undertook and implemented critical reform initiatives with the support of different partners with the objective of enhancing the capacities of public institutions and streamlining efforts and procedures to improve service delivery to citizens. This also required upgrading our ministries and public institutions' capacities in line with best practice, but the concept has taken momentum by establishing the Ministry of Public Sector Development in 2006, which I'm honored to have served at one point in my career as one of its ministers, which has been mandated to oversee public sector restructuring, improving and simplifying public services, and developing the human resources in the public sector. Under a recent restructuring law, the restructuring law of the government institutions and departments, we have recently finalized a robust restructuring plan to downsize the government structure. The process involved canceling and merging several public institutions in different sectors to make them more effective and cost efficient. Thanks to a specific also bylaw establishing the new government departments and organizational structure development bylaw, organizational structures and internal departments' affairs are now more rationalized. Improving public sector and simplifying procedures is now also governed by legislation, the Government Services Improvement Bylaw. The Ministry of Public Sector Development has developed guidelines for more than 2,000 government services in view to streamline procedures and make them more responsive to the needs of citizens, or citizen-centric institutions as well as businesses. Furthermore, our Ministry of Information and Communication Technology is currently implemented an accelerated e-government plan that will allow 350 government services to be provided online or e-enabled. Already 100 government services are accessible online. An additional 250 will be available by 2019. On the human resource dimension, the Ministry of Public Sector Development has invested a lot of efforts to align human resources with institutional roles and functions in most of the government entities, addressing human resource shortages, empowering women in the civil service, dealing with surpluses across the public sector, enhancing leadership, and building the capacity of human rights units in different critical public entities. On top of this, the government introduced concrete amendments to the civil service bylaw, mainly to enable the government to attract more suitable staff, delegate more authorities to top management, while limiting the use of discretionary powers. To complement the public sector reform program, a Royal National Commission adopted a National Integrity Charter in 2013, which includes the basic principles and ethical and professional criteria that would regulate work in both the public and private sectors, strengthening integrity, transparency, the rule of law, and accountability. The Charter is being tracked also by an independent Royal Commission against an executive plan with a specific timeline and targets. Moreover, Parliament recently approved a new integrity, ombudsman, and anti-corruption law in a step to unify the work of oversight agencies and enhance the national integrity system and oversight. Under this law, a commission is being established to be the legal successor of the Anti-Corruption Commission and the Ombudsman Bureau. This legislative reform builds on recent efforts that saw the establishment of new democratic institutions such as the Constitutional Court and an independent elections commission. On top of our reform plans, the government of Jordan launched the country's 10-year socio-economic blueprint, the Jordan 2025, which puts our citizens at the heart of the development model and focuses on increasing competitiveness and productivity of our economy. Public sector reform and e-government are critical pillars of this blueprint, with a focus on improving services to citizens and strengthening the delivery unit at the Prime Ministry or at the center of government. In addition, Jordan takes pride of having an independent center of excellence, the King Abdullah II Center for Excellence, to promote the culture of excellence in public, private, and civil society sectors, and through the King Abdullah Awards program that are given. And I'd like to announce that Cabinet has made it mandatory for all public ministries and organizations to participate in this award, with the aim of increasing the competition and the incentives for continuous improvement in the functions of different ministries and public organizations as they compete for this national award. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the reform efforts over the years and the success we hit in some individual aspects of the process, Jordan's public sector is still facing great challenges to adapt with our general economy's requirements. Our government size is still disproportionate with the national economy and needs to be right-sized, and the level of service delivery should cope with the ever-increasing demands, especially with the Syrian refugees crisis. This requires a long-term and a more comprehensive framework to reform and to build on the principles of the Jordan 2025, as well as the principles that we are going to share today and discuss. The principles that Sigma is launching today could set a critical guide to good public administration practices, to which all our countries can aspire. We are keen to learn more about the principles, and we look to jointly working together to experiment and implement the model on Jordan's case in our next public sector reform program, hoping that the findings and recommendations will help the government to design and implement the new generation of public sector reforms and as per the targets and the pillars of our Jordan 2025. This, I believe, is a good opportunity for me to sincerely thank the European Union for its continuous support to Jordan, which has been an invaluable and remains partner over the many years in our development and reform programs. The EU's financial and technical support to Jordan has been also invaluable and remains to hold a considerable impact on our steadfast mission of achieving advancement and progress to the Jordanian people, particularly at this challenging time. And I would like to specially thank Dr. Koller for personally attending the conference and for his strong and personal effort and continuous commitment to supporting our region and Jordan at different levels. Thanks are also due to the OECD for their support to Jordan in many sectors. The OECD has been at the forefront of the global cooperation, top-notch analysis, and policy advice. I wish you all a very successful day in terms of your deliberations, as well as a pleasant and memorable stay in our beloved Jordan, and hope that this meeting will provide valuable inputs and impetus towards implementing these principles in our region and creating a new wave of deeper public sector reforms that our region badly needs them. And finally, allow me once again to congratulate our colleagues in the European Union and Commission on Europe's National Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Your